So a lot developing today, September the 27th, 2025, between NATO, Russia, Ukraine, the United States. Take a look at the latest headlines with me so you can see it for yourself. We've got a lot of video footage today. Russian Foreign Minister, aggression against us will be met with decisive response. Moscow's top diplomat insists that Russia has no intention of attacking Europe, but says we will respond to any forms of aggression. He said this in front of the United Nations today. I'm going to be playing for you the video footage. Russia warns the West as Ukraine secures Patriot defenses. Now, we had heard Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky say that if we receive weapons from the United States, we're going to be using them immediately against Russia. They said, Russia, you will be hit with U.S. weapons as soon as we receive them. Well, Russia is warning back against Ukraine right now, and we're hearing that Ukraine is securing Patriot defenses from Israel, and they're awaiting missiles from the United States. Now, take a look at this as well. NATO country reports drones also over the largest military base after airport attack mulls the response. Denmark reports drone sightings for the third time this week, coming out today, Saturday, September the 27th. We are seeing more Russian drones violating airspace. Now, Russian nuclear weapons sub also issues a major alert in the Mediterranean. This coming out today as well. A lot unfolding, as I mentioned. And as I said, Ukraine, U.S., they are planning a major arms deal. Zelensky is warning Russia, we're going to be getting those U.S. missiles here very soon. So Russia, you better decide what it is you're going to do. And that, we saw a response coming out from Russia. I shared it with you when it came out 2 days ago. Take a look. Putin ally fires nuclear warning at Trump's U.S. So there was a warning that came out to Ukraine and the United States from Russia after we saw Zelensky tell Russia that they better go ahead and hide in their bomb shelters. I'm going to cover it again for you, but Russia basically came out and said, Zelensky, you better remember, and all of Europe better remember, the fact that Russia has bombs that bomb shelters cannot protect you against. We have nuclear warheads that bomb shelters will not help you. And he said also the American people might want to remember that as well. Threats directed towards the United States as well. So a lot going on. Like I said, I've got the video footage, I've got the articles. We're going to be covering all the latest details of what is coming out today, September the 27th, 2025, so you can know exactly what is taking place as things are intensifying. It seems like we're going in the direction of war. Just a couple of days ago, we heard Russia literally say, war is the only answer. It's the only way forward after all of the rhetoric back and forth that has been going on. And we saw Donald Trump change his stance, and he said, you know what? Ukraine, they could win this war. They could get all their territory back, and in fact, they might even take some of Russia's territory with the support of the United States and NATO. And he also said, if Russian drones fly into your airspace, shoot them down. Shoot them down right away. Let them know we're not messing around anymore. Trump vocalizing his disapproval for Vladimir Putin as he has tried over and over to bring him to the negotiating table, believes that Putin is on track to come up with some sort of deal. Then at the last second, he finds out that Putin is actually still doing even greater attacks. And so he is flipped, and they are applying the pressure to Russia, but Russia is barking back even in front of the entire UN with threats. So we're going to be seeing where we go from here. So let's go ahead and dive right in. As I mentioned, videos, I got the articles. They're hyperlinked in the description. Going to put them on the screen, read right from them, try to hold myself to the highest level of accountability to my viewing community here on the channel. Now, if you appreciate that, do me a favor before we dive in, hit that thumbs up like button. Helps spread this out further across the YouTube platform while we're live. In addition to that, if you want to stay up to date, it is totally free. Why not go ahead and hit that subscribe button? Pretty much doing daily updates. There's so much going on. I'll keep you up to speed on all of it. And people have been asking about those iodide potassium tablets in case there's some sort of form of radiation exposure. If some sort of nuclear detonation were to take place, you can go ahead and protect that thyroid. That's going to be linked in the description with the Amazon links of various things you can make sure that you have just in case. So that way, as we say on the channel, you're not scared, but you're prepared, ready for anything. Knowledge is power, but the application of knowledge is the true power. Being prepared, not just knowing what's going on, but being prepared, knowing what is going on. So let's go ahead and get right to it. Let's start off with some video footage so that way you can see the latest. This coming out just in the past 2 hours with some updates, with a lot taking place.
Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov addressing the UN General Assembly moments ago as the country's war on Ukraine rages on. For his part, President Trump expressing disappointment in Russian President Vladimir Putin this week. Stephanie Bennett live with the very latest for us on that developing story. Stephanie.
Hey, Kevin. Yeah, a lot to dive into this afternoon, both on Lavrov's comments just as he left the stage seconds ago, and also to the situation on the ground in Ukraine. Now, Lavrov just taking aim just now at the EU and also NATO, saying that any aggression against Russia from them will be met with a divisive response. He also said that Russia has been and remains open to negotiations on eliminating the root causes of the conflict, but Russia's security and interests must be guaranteed. Now, Lavrov also spoke a few days ago on Thursday. Take a look at some of this footage from that. Lavrov accused the West, as well as NATO and the European Union, of provoking the crisis in Ukraine. U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio met with him this week and reiterated President Donald Trump's call for the killing to stop and the need for Moscow to take meaningful steps toward a durable resolution. This week, President Donald Trump announced a major shift, writing on Truth Social that he thinks Ukraine, with the support of the European Union, is in a position to fight and win all of Ukraine back from its original form, retaking essentially its territory that Russia has occupied. And the president also expressed this week his disappointment in Putin for prolonging the war.
I'm very dissatisfied with what Russia's doing and what President Putin is doing. I haven't liked it at all. He's killing people for no reason whatsoever.
And this afternoon, President Zelensky, he wrote on X that, quote, America stands with Ukraine, and we feel it. We thank the people of the United States, President Donald Trump, and the First Lady Melania Trump for their attention to Ukrainians, to our children, to our people. We stand together, and that means life will be protected and peace and security will be closer. But again, the back and forth attacks, they continue. Russia launched 115 drones across Ukraine, targeting several regions, including Zaporizhia. 97 of those were neutralized, according to Ukraine's Air Force. And the Russian Defense Ministry claims to have captured 3 more villages in eastern Ukraine today. Meanwhile, Ukrainian long-range drones have hit oil pumping stations deep inside Russia. These are about 700 miles into Russia from the Ukrainian border. It caused a fire and also suspended operations there. Kevin, a lot going on and a lot to keep our eyes on.
Yes, indeed. And always you do a great job. Stephanie Bennett, thank you so much. Meantime, the president says the U.S. is close to securing a deal to end the war in Gaza and bring the hostages home.
There you have it, you guys. So they're switching over to Gaza, and there's potentially a hostage deal. But there you saw the updates with what's going on with Russia and Ukraine and the concerns. I want to stay focused on that right now because there's a lot developing with that. And take a look at this article coming out today from ABC News that says the Russian foreign minister said that aggression against us will be met with decisive responses. Now, as I mentioned to you, there were direct threats issued to the United States just a couple of days ago, warnings about nuclear bomb detonations, and bomb shelters will not save you, they said. Let's take a look at what they had to say before the entire United Nations. This article you can see coming out today says, as new tensions rise between Russia and NATO powers, Moscow's top diplomat insists to world leaders Saturday that his nation doesn't intend to attack Europe, but will mount a decisive response to any aggression. Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov spoke at the UN's General Assembly after weeks in which unauthorized flights into NATO's airspace, intrusions the alliance blames on Russia, have raised alarm around Europe, particularly after NATO jets downed drones over Poland and Estonia, said Russian fighter jets flew into its territory and lingered for 12 minutes. Now, listen to this. Russia has denied that its planes entered Estonian airspace and has said the drones didn't target Poland, with Moscow's ally Belarus maintaining that Ukrainian signal jamming sent the devices off course. Man, let me know your thoughts. Russia, who do you trust here? Russia is denying that they have violated any airspace. They're saying they have no intention of attacking any nation that's a part of NATO, and that they didn't do any of this. But if they're attacked, then they will respond back. Who do you trust in this situation, NATO or Russia? Let me know your thoughts. Who do you trust here? Because NATO is claiming that it is Russia, and Russia is preparing to attack. Russia's saying they didn't do any of it, and that NATO might try to attack them, and if they do, they're going to hit them back. Now, but European leaders see the incidents as intentional. That's what we've been hearing. NATO is saying, no, Russia is doing this on purpose. They are kind of poking at various nations, trying to see who is not ready, who might be the next one. Phase 2 in the attacks in Russia as Ukraine is phase 1. It says, but European leaders see the incidents as intentional, provocative moves meant to rattle NATO and to suss how the alliance will respond. The alliance warned Russia this week that NATO would use all means to defend against any further breaches of its airspace. At the UN, Lavrov maintained it's Russia that is facing the threats right now. Russia has never had and does not have any such intentions. And again, let me know who's telling the truth here. Do you believe Russia? Do you believe that they have no intentions of attacking anybody? Or do you believe NATO? Russia has never had and does not have any such intentions of attacking European or NATO countries, he said. However, any aggression against my country will be met with a decisive response. There should be no doubt about this among those in NATO and the European Union. Lavrov spoke 3 years into Russia's invasion of Ukraine, a war that the international community has broadly deplored. U.S. President Donald Trump said this week that he believed Ukraine can win back all of its territory that it has lost to Russia. It was a notable tone shift from a U.S. leader who had previously suggested that Ukraine would need to make some concessions and could never reclaim all of the area that Russia had occupied since seizing the Crimean Peninsula in 2014 and launching a full-scale invasion in 2022. Now, just 3 weeks earlier, Russian President Vladimir Putin had said his country and the United States had a mutual understanding and that Trump's administration is listening to us. Trump and Putin held a summit in Alaska in early August, but left without a deal to end the war. Sounding a notably open note. I think that's sending a notably open note from a country that has often lambasted the West. Lavrov noted the summit and said Russia had some hopes to keep talking with the United States. Now, in the approaches of the current U.S. administration, we see a desire not only to contribute to ways to realistically resolve the Ukrainian crisis, but also a desire to develop pragmatic cooperation without adopting an ideological stance, the diplomat said, portraying the powers as counterparts of sorts. Russia and the U.S. bear a special responsibility for the state of affairs in the world and for avoiding risks that could plunge humanity into a new war. So again, there we have it. There are the warnings of a new war. They're saying it would be a global war, a World War III. Now, to be sure, Lavrov still had sharp words for NATO, an alliance that includes the United States, and for the West in general, and the European Union. Trump's new view of Ukraine prospects came after he met with its President Volodymyr Zelensky on the sidelines of the General Assembly on Tuesday, 7 months after a televised blow-up between the two in the Oval Office. This time the doors were closed, and the tenor was evidently different. A good meeting, as Zelensky described it in his assembly speech the next day. For the 4th year in a row, Zelensky appeared to be gathering of presidents, prime ministers, and other top officials to get Russia out of his country. And he warned that inaction would put other countries at risk. Ukraine is only the first. And again, this is his warning to all the other nations. This is how he is continuing to get support, is letting them know Ukraine is just phase 1 of a multi-phase process that Russia has planned. Russia has offered various explanations for the Ukraine war, among them ensuring its own security after NATO expanded eastward over the years and drew closer with Ukraine after Russia's move into Crimea. Russia also has said that its offensive was meant to protect Russian speakers in the eastern Ukraine. Ukraine and the West have denounced Russia's invasion as an unprovoked act of aggression. So there you have it. That happening today before the United Nations. And take a look. As we mentioned, Ukraine is also getting Patriot defenses. Russia warns the West as Ukraine secures Patriot defenses. Russia issued a warning Saturday today to NATO powers that are considering firmer responses to the alleged Russian incursions, as Ukraine said it, for the first time, received U.S.-made Patriot systems from Israel to ramp up their defenses. So Ukraine is now getting support with those U.S. Patriot systems from Israel. Several European countries say Russian fighter jets and drones have violated their airspace over recent weeks in what NATO has seen as a test of its resolve as Moscow presses on with its invasion of Ukraine. Russia is being accused of almost planning to attack the North Atlantic Alliance and the European Union countries, Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov said in an address to the UN General Assembly. Russia has never had and does not have any such intentions. However, any aggression against my country will be met with a decisive response, he said. Speaking later to reporters, Lavrov said that if any country downs objects still within Russia's airspace, they will very much regret it. NATO, which considers an attack on one ally an attack on all, has been considering whether to shoot down Russian planes in what would be a dramatic raising of the stakes with Russia. U.S. President Donald Trump on Tuesday voiced support for downing Russian planes. Trump had once boasted of his warm ties with Russian President Vladimir Putin and invited him last month for talks in Alaska, ending the veteran Russian leader's ostracizing by the West since he ordered the 2022 invasion of Ukraine. But Trump has subsequently voiced frustration with Putin and said that Ukraine should seize back all of its territory that Russia has taken or even crossed borders, abruptly reversing his mouths of pressure on Kiev to give up land in talks with Russia. Lavrov went out of his way still to praise Trump, who, despite his public musing on Putin, has yet to impose long-threatened new economic sanctions on Russia. In the approach of the current U.S. administration, we see a desire not only to contribute to ways to realistically resolve the Ukrainian crisis, but also a desire to develop pragmatic cooperation without adopting an ideological stance, Lavrov said. Now, also, Israel has offered support now. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky announced Saturday today that Israel, for the first time, had sent a U.S.-made Patriot anti-missile defense system. The Israeli Patriot system is operating in Ukraine. It has been operating for a month. We will receive 2 Patriot systems in the fall, Zelensky told reporters as he returned from the UN summit in which he met Trump. Kiev is scrambling to beef up its air defenses to repel daily Russian barrages of drones and missiles, especially ahead of winter, with heating infrastructure a frequent target of the attacks. Now, Israel, despite close ties with the United States, has tried to stay out of the Russia-Ukraine conflict, but has sought cordial relationship with Moscow, in part due to its historical influence in neighboring Syria. However, Russia's role there has diminished since Islamic-led fighters toppled veteran leader Bashar al-Assad in December. Israel has still been adamant that it will not share with Ukraine its state-of-the-art Iron Dome defense system, but with U.S. support that has proved crucial in shooting down incoming missiles in Israel's own ongoing war. Now, there have been slow gains by Russia. Russia, after failing to seize Ukraine swiftly in 2022, has been grinding through the east of the country in costly battles. It claimed on Saturday to have captured 3 villages. Ukraine said that overnight Russia attacks killed 1 person and wounded 12 in the southeastern Kherson region. As tensions rise between Russia and European powers, the Zaporizhzhia nuclear plant, the largest in Europe, has been off of the grid for 4 straight days now. It is the longest outage since Russia invaded and seized the site. Now, Ukraine's foreign minister, Andrei Sybiga, writing on X, blamed Russia. The Russian-based operator of the plant in turn blamed Ukrainian attacks and said that it has been receiving power from backup diesel generators. So a lot of concerns with a nuclear power plant. Also, I mentioned a nuclear submarine, a lot taking place right now with the conflict going on with Russia, Ukraine, NATO, and the United States. And we're hearing, though, that there's an arms deal that is underway, as you saw, between the United States and Ukraine. And Zelensky is warning Russia, Prepare to have U.S. missiles coming your way. Man. Now, take a look at the latest video footage so you can see it for yourself.
38 minutes now after the hour. Breaking news. This happening just moments ago. Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky announcing a $90 billion arms deal with the United States. That deal allegedly includes long-range weapons and drones. This as, of course, Russia's Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov addressed the UN General Assembly today. Stephanie Bennett live with more. We talked last hour, Stephanie, that things are changing moment by moment, and it appears that indeed is the case.
Yeah, hey, Kevin, it's one of those days, another busy day where things change by the minute almost. Now, Lavrov, he wrapped up about an hour ago. We're going to dive into that. He took aim at NATO and also the EU. He said Russia has been and remains open to negotiations on eliminating the root causes of the conflict, but Russia's security and vital interests must be reliably agreed. He also spoke on those accusations against Russia of planning to attack NATO countries after many have accused Moscow of violating their airspace with jets and drones in recent weeks, which the Kremlin has denied.
Russia is being accused of almost planning to attack the North Atlantic Alliance and the European Union countries. President Putin has repeatedly debunked these provocations. Russia has never had and does not have any such intentions. However, any aggression against my country will be met with a decisive response.
And earlier this week, President Donald Trump announced a major shift, writing on Truth Social that he thinks Ukraine, with the support of the European Union, is in a position to fight and win all of Ukraine back in its original form, essentially retaking its territory that Russia has occupied. The president also expressed his disappointment in Putin for prolonging the war and that it's time to stop.
I'm very dissatisfied with what Russia's doing and what President Putin is doing. I haven't liked it at all. He's killing people for no reason whatsoever.
President Zelensky this afternoon wrote on X that America stands with Ukraine and we feel it. We thank the people of the United States, President Donald Trump, the First Lady Melania Trump, for their attention to Ukrainians, to our children, to our people. We stand together, he said, and that means life will be protected and peace and security will be closer. But these back and forth attacks, they do continue. Russia launched 115 drones across Ukraine, targeting several regions, including the Zaporizhia region. 97 were neutralized, according to Ukraine's Air Force. Zelensky, as you said, also announced today a $90 billion arms agreement with the U.S. and a separate drone deal for Ukrainian-made drones that the U.S. will purchase. He also disclosed that an Israeli Patriot air defense system has been operating in Ukraine for the past month. 2 more are expected to arrive in the fall. Now, meanwhile, Ukrainian drones, they hit oil pumping stations deep inside Russia. Allegedly, they were more than 700 miles from the border with Ukraine. So a lot going on, Kevin.
Well, you're not kidding. Changes by the minute. Thank you for being on the story for us today, Stephanie Bennett. Thank you.
And let's go ahead and take a look at the actual video footage of what Lavrov had to say in the UN. Now, you're going to be hearing the translation. Let's go ahead and take a look at this very short 2-minute clip.
Thank you very much, Foreign Minister Mark Stone from Sky News. I wonder if I could persuade you to answer a question in English, perhaps. President Trump has called Russia a paper tiger, has said that European countries should shoot down Russian planes if they violate European airspace. Do you see that as a provocation? And what would happen if Russian planes are shot down? Thank you, sir.
First of all, we are at the United Nations, and the Russian language is an official language of the United Nations, as is the English language. So I'm very grateful to all of you for your respect for our right or opportunity to use this language. Frankly speaking, you can't necessarily follow all of the statements that have been made, but I do remember a day or so after the statement was uttered, paper tiger. The next day, President Trump was asked, does he continue to think Russia is a paper tiger? And the response there was negative. So if each nuance in the rhetoric is addressed, well, I already responded to what I think of certain statements from President Trump. In public diplomacy, there are various tools being leveraged, various means, various procedures, and as if President Trump allowed for the bombing of Russian Federation, intercepting drones, planes. When a drone flies not over our territory, if it crossed somebody's border, but outside of our airspace, probably everybody has a right to do what they deem necessary with this drone for providing for their own security. But if there are attempts to down any flying object, any object over our territory, in our airspace, then I think people will very much regret undertaking such an egregious violation of our territorial integrity and sovereignty.
So that was today. You can see the date in the corner, September 27th, 2025, before the United Nations. That was Mr. Sergei Lavrov discussing the conflicts that are currently taking place right now. Now, we've heard that they have said if you shoot down, our drones, our jets, you're going to be met with a decisive response. And we're hearing, take a look coming out September 27th. Today, NATO countries report drones over the largest military base after airport attack mulls a response. Denmark reports drone sightings for the third time this week. They're saying Russia is still at it. Denmark on Saturday today reported more mysterious drone sightings, this time over military installations, including its largest military base after incursions at airports, grounded flights this week. The NATO country is still mulling how to respond. Now, we've heard potential Article 4. Now, also that could lead to Article 5, which is NATO going to war essentially against Russia. And let me know your thoughts here. Are we going to be going to war? If you think so, put war in the comments. If you think no, put peace. But what do you think is going to be unfolding next with all of this taking place? And yet, even still today, with all these threats, we're hearing that it looks like Russia is still poking at various nations. And the United Nations, or excuse me, not the United Nations, NATO is trying to figure out, where do we go from here? Are we going to end up in war? Or are we going to have peace? Let me know in the comments. And if you haven't done so yet, please take a second, hit that like button as well. I see we got about 5,000 people on. If we can get that up to 2,500, half of the room liking the video live stream while we are on, helps out the channel a ton. If you haven't done so yet, please do so. Reading on, it says Denmark's armed forces reported that more drones were observed overnight, according to Reuters. The Danish defense can confirm that drones were observed at several of the Danish defense's locations last night. Several capabilities were deployed, a spokesperson told the outlet. Police said that drones were spotted near the Karup Air Base in western Denmark, Reuters reported, citing Ritzau news agency. In addition to the sightings in Denmark, Norway had a reported run-in with drones. Norwegian police are reportedly investigating possible drone sightings near an Air Force base in central Norway, Reuters reported, adding that the base houses the country's F-35 fighter jets. The guards at the base made several observations outside of the base's perimeter early on Saturday. A spokesperson at the Norwegian Armed Forces Joint Headquarters told Reuters. Saturday's incident in Denmark comes just days after the country's Aalborg Airport, which is used by the Danish military, was closed due to drone sightings. Danish authorities said that the drone incident was a hybrid attack that came from a professional actor, according to the BBC. The outlet said authorities specified that the drones were launched locally and did not come from Russia. So they're saying that one was not from Russia. Now, on Monday, a similar drone incident impacted Copenhagen Airport. Unlike the incident at Aalborg, some suspected Russia could have been the culprit behind these attacks. Danish Prime Minister Mette Frederiksen said that it was the most serious attack on Danish critical infrastructure to date, according to the reports. She added that the country was not ruling out any options in relation to who is behind it, Reuters reported. NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte said on Friday that he had spoken with Frederiksen about the drones and that the alliance was taking the incident very seriously. NATO allies and Denmark are working together on how we can ensure the safety and security of our critical infrastructure, Rutte said in a post on X. Now, while some believe that the country was considering triggering NATO's Article 4 to convene allied countries over the drone incident, Danish Foreign Minister Lars Løkke Rasmussen, said that the country had no reason to do so, according to Reuters. Rasmussen said that after Article 4 was recently triggered due to the aerial disturbance in Poland and Estonia, Denmark did not feel a need to do the same, Reuters reported, because right now, as you just read, Article 4 has already been initiated. Estonia and Poland, they already have gathered all the NATO nations to discuss the threat of Russia. So Article 4 is already underway. So it appears that the nation of Denmark, felt it's not necessary to do so. We already have this going on as we speak. Despite neither triggering a NATO response nor shooting down the drones, Denmark is still mulling a possible response to the sightings. So we're going to see here, that means that they had this incident. Maybe Russia is saying Denmark isn't doing anything. They might be one of the weaker ones that we could respond to. Now, in addition to that, take a look at this. Russian nuclear weapons sub issued a major alert in the Mediterranean. The Black Sea Fleet submarine has set off an alarm following an explosive hazard on board. The submarine is currently traveling in the Mediterranean Sea. A Russian submarine, which is capable of carrying nuclear weapons, has declared a major alert in the Mediterranean Sea. Now, Opericulum, thank you so much for the $5 super chat. How likely is World War III at this point? Well, what we're hearing it's more likely right now than it ever has been before. They're saying we are closer to a global conflict in World War III. It has not been this bad since World War II. So that is currently what we're hearing. A lot of people are hoping we're not going to go that direction, but it has been getting pretty tense lately. I'll continue to keep you up to date on whatever unfolds. Continuing on, it says the Black Sea Fleet submarine has flagged that an explosive hazard is allegedly on board. It has been reported that the sub is experiencing serious technical problems, according to Russian telegram channels, and the sub is suffering a leakage of fuel, which has created a dangerous hazard. The crew may have no choice but to pump the fuel mixture into the sea, that it has been reported. It remains unclear on where exactly the incident has taken place within the Mediterranean. The Telegram channel stated that this particular submarine, currently on combat duty in the Mediterranean Sea, is experiencing serious technical problems due to damage in its fuel system. Fuel is leaking directly into the hold. There are no spare parts for repairs or qualified specialists on the submarine, and the crew is unable to fix the malfunctions. So there is also a nuclear submarine in the Mediterranean that has issued a major alert. Now, in addition to that, major alert for Russia as well, sounded off by Zelensky. Ukraine, U.S. planning a major arms deal. Zelensky says, you can see this coming out tomorrow, September the 28th, because this is coming out from a Ukrainian news feed that just posted it a little while ago. Let's go ahead and take a look at this. A Ukrainian delegation in the United States this fall will work to finalize agreements to purchase American weapons and export domestically produced drones, President Volodymyr Zelensky said at a press briefing in Kiev on September the 27th to date. Now, this is coming as he is issuing those threats out. We're going to be taking a look at Russia's response to Russia, letting them know, prepare for U.S. missiles to be heading your way from Ukraine. The president's comments follow his recent visit to the United States, where he met with U.S. President Donald Trump and held a series of talks with world leaders at the UN General Assembly. Ukraine is planning both a mega deal, a major agreement on the purchase of American weapons, and a drone deal to sell Ukrainian unmanned systems to the United States, Zelensky said. We have discussed the main things, agreed with the U.S. president. Now we are moving on to practical implementation, Zelensky said. Kiev has prepared a list of weapons that it wants to buy from the United States, totaling around $90 billion, Zelensky said. Kiev is also interested in separate agreements for other types of weapons, particularly long-range missiles. Zelensky said that he could not provide more detail on such an agreement because it is a very sensitive issue. The Telegraph reported on September 26 that Zelensky asked Trump to provide Ukraine with long-range Tomahawk cruise missiles during their meeting at the UN. The Tomahawk, with a range of up to 2,500 kilometers and a 450 kilogram or 922 pounds warhead, would significantly exceed the capabilities of any long-range system that Ukraine has received from Western allies. Zelensky said the government is also readying a system of controlled exports of Ukrainian-made weapons to countries beyond the U.S. Under this system, Ukraine will export military equipment it holds in surplus and spend the profits on urgently needed weapons such as interceptor drones. This system is designed to meet Ukraine's military needs, though the president acknowledged that it might disappoint some defense companies. I am not sure that all of our businesses are satisfied. They want to sell everything, everywhere, at once. But of course, our priority is replenishing the Ukrainian army, Zelensky said. And that will be our priority until the end of the war in any case. Therefore, exports will be controlled until the end of the war. Ukraine intends to make export deals with countries in the United States, Europe, the Middle East, Africa, Zelensky said, adding that proposals had already been received by several African nations and that Kiev had already decided which countries would be its first partner. Now, more details will be made public in the near future, Zelensky said. Zelensky also confirmed that Ukraine had received a Patriot air defense system from Israel that had already been operating for a month and said 2 additional Patriots are expected to arrive from Germany in the fall. Zelensky first outlined Ukraine's proposal for $90 billion in U.S. weapons during a visit to Washington, D.C. in August, describing it as a part of a package of post-war security guarantees. Previously, the Financial Times reported that Kiev had proposed buying $100 billion worth of American weapons financed by its European partners. A month later, the president announced that Ukraine was initiating the controlled export of Ukrainian weapons, particularly naval drones. Ukraine's drone industry has exploded since the start of Russia's full-scale invasion in 2022, leading to the rise of over 200 drone companies. Now, these companies have built cheap, adaptable systems that have reshaped modern warfare, but Ukraine's production capability has outpaced its financing. The export of Ukraine's domestic weapons is heavily restricted, requiring hard-to-obtain permits from the State Export Service. In May, Ukrainian defense manufacturers issued a public letter to Zelensky urging him to lift export restrictions on domestically produced military-grade equipment, particularly drones. So, we are hearing that Zelensky is saying that they are ready to receive those U.S. weapons and that Russia better get ready. Now, take a look at Russia's response to this. Putin ally fires nuclear warnings at Trump's U.S. Now, this was a couple days ago, and we're hearing that this is still ringing true with what they had to say in the UN today. Top Kremlin official Dmitry Medvedev issued a fiery nuclear warning to the United States after Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky said officials in Moscow should learn where their nearest bomb shelter is if they don't end the war in Russia. Zelensky, in an interview with Axios, said U.S. President Donald Trump had given him explicit backing to Ukrainian strikes on Russian targets such as energy infrastructure and armed factories, and that if Kiev receives more long-range American weaponry, then we will use it. And we're hearing, as we saw in that previous article, that is exactly what is going on right now. Well, this is what Russia had to say. The Kiev drug addicts said the Kremlin should know where a bomb shelter is so its occupants can hide when he uses long-range American weapons. Medvedev, who is the deputy chairman of Russia's President Vladimir Putin on the Kremlin Security Council and is himself a former president and prime minister of Russia, said in an X post, "What the freak needs to know is that Russia can use weapons a bomb shelter won't protect against. Americans should also keep this in mind," he had to say. So there you go. He is warning them, threatening them, and also America as well, he said, should keep this in mind, threatening the United States. Now, the NATO-Russia conflict, tensions between Russia and the U.S.-led NATO, both sides, armed with devastating arsenals of nuclear weapons, have escalated sharply in recent weeks as Moscow's invasion of Ukraine thunders on despite Trump's efforts to broker a peace deal. The potential for a direct NATO-Russia clash is increasing, and that NATO-Russia clash will involve the United States, and many are saying will lead to global conflict. And that is why they're saying we are at the doorstep of World War III. It hasn't been this bad since World War II. NATO allies have accused Russia of a series of serious violations of their airspace. Allegations Moscow says lack evidence. In one such incident, Poland says that it had to shoot down a dozen Russian drones that violated its airspace and threatened its security during an attack on neighboring western Ukraine. Trump, speaking at a press conference alongside Zelensky during the United Nations General Assembly meeting in New York, said that he thought NATO countries should shoot down those Russian aircrafts entering their airspace. Now, Trump says Ukraine could recapture all of their land as well. He also posted on Truth Social's platform that the NATO support Ukraine could win back all of its territory seized by Russia over the course of its full-scale invasion since launched back in February of 2022. Why not? Trump wrote. Russia has been fighting aimlessly for 3.5 years at a war that should have taken only a real military power less than a week to win. This is not distinguishing Russia. In fact, it is very much making them look like a paper tiger. And that is a response that we just watched a little while ago that came out today as they said Trump walked it back. That's what Russia claims. And Russia also said that if anybody decides to go up against Russia, that there will be decisive responses. Trump continued, when the people living in Moscow and all the great cities, towns, and districts all throughout Russia find out what is really going on with this war, the fact that it's almost impossible for them to get gasoline through the long lines that are being formed and all the other things that are taking place in their war economy, where most of their money is being spent on fighting Ukraine, which has great spirit and only getting better. Ukraine would be able to take back their country in its original form and, who knows, maybe even get further than that. Man, so there you have it. Donald Trump, again, flipping stances. Russia very upset with the rhetoric coming out, and those threats are being issued out left and right. Now, let's go ahead and take a look at some more video footage coming out today. Like I said, a lot happening right now with this. I'm going to keep you up to speed on all of it. Let's take a look at this coming out from Fox Business News.
Let me switch gears. Earlier this week, 4 Russian warplanes were detected flying off the coast of Alaska. This is the latest in a series of flights by Russian aircraft seen by many as a test of U.S. and NATO preparedness. President Trump delivered a new message to Russian President Vladimir Putin this week over the ongoing war in Ukraine. Watch this.
I'm very disappointed in Putin. And he's been fighting hard. He's been fighting long, and they lost millions. They lost like 1 million soldiers. And I'm not going to ever call anybody a paper tiger. But Russia spent millions and millions of dollars in bombs, missiles, ammunition, and lives. Their lives. And they've gained virtually no land. I think it's time to stop. I really do.
Your thoughts, Congressman?
I think to capture it as a test of preparedness is the wrong way to capture it. It's a test of resolve by Vladimir Putin every single time he flies drones the size of dinner tables into Poland, dozens of them, or his MiG jets into Estonia within miles of their capital, or flies into Denmark, all of our allies. He is testing. And what is he testing? What is the commitment of NATO allies to actually do anything about it? Do they have the same resolve that Turkey had back in 2015? Russia flew a MiG into Turkey. They shot that down with an American F-16 in about 20 seconds. He's got to be sitting in the Kremlin just laughing his tail off that NATO is tying itself into knots over whether they're going to knock down weapon systems that are being flown into their countries. I would make this comparison. If my neighbor were throwing grenades into my backyard over the fence, number one, I'm going to throw them back, and number two, I'm going to go kick in their front door. But it's like NATO wants us to have the argument of maybe we should just go talk to the HOA instead. That's what's going on. He's got to be laughing about it.
Well, I mean, I spoke with the president of Poland, and he, too, had to shoot down drones. They said there wasn't any ammunition on the drones, but these drones are coming from Russia into Poland. This has regular civilians going into the military. They want to be ready just in case Russia accelerates this.
Every time that happens, it is a test. And the test has been failed because, number one, if they weren't shot down immediately, that is a failure of the test. Number two, if the response is we're going to invoke a NATO Article 4, which is really nothing more than NATO coming together and saying they're going to have a conversation, that's a failure of the test. If the response is anything other than we are knocking it down immediately, it's a failure to the test. And of course, we can anticipate what Putin says, and he did say this to Denmark. He did say it in response to what the president said. If you do that, if you shoot down the weapons systems that I'm flying into your sovereign countries, I consider that an act of war. That's what Putin said about. That's what he says about everything. If you do it, I consider it an act of war. It's the game of chicken that he always calculates he will win because he assumes we'll believe it's a thermonuclear act of war.
Well, look, you and your colleagues were able to get the $150 billion in Department of War, Defense, and the ICE deportation funding in the One Big Beautiful Bill, but Democrats want more spending on the Affordable Care Act money.
So there you have it, you guys, the responses on Russia and what is going on right now. They're switching gears into what is going on with the Big Beautiful Bill and various other pieces of legislation that are going on. But right now, things are tense around the world with global conflict. Now, we're going to be seeing where we go from here. But right now, Donald Trump is trying to address all of this. And if you support Trump, the Trump administration, the way they're handling all of these things, drop a 47 in the comments for support for the Trump administration. And also, do me a favor if you haven't done so yet. So we got about 5,000 people live with me in the room. Hit that like button, help spread this out. But that is the latest that we have seen coming out, and that is that in the UN today, we saw Sergei Lavrov come out and make those threats, those warnings. We saw that Ukraine is saying that they're going to be getting U.S. missiles, and U.S. missiles will be on their way attacking Russia, and Russia letting Ukraine and the United States know, just keep in mind, they said, that Russia has bombs that your bomb shelters won't protect you against. Man, so that coming out past couple of days, new updates coming out today regarding what Russia had to say in front of the entire UN. We're going to be seeing where we go from here. I will keep you up to date every step of the way, regardless of whether we go into war or peace. I'll let you know. I'll cite all the sources, put it on the screen, read right from it so you know that it is the latest updated information. And again, if you appreciate that, hit that thumbs up like button. Looks like we just need 80 more likes to hit, 70 more likes to hit 2,000 likes while we're live. Subscribe to stay up to date. It's totally free, and I'll keep you up to speed on everything. But that is the latest, you guys. Thank you so much for joining me, and I'll catch you in the next one. Take care. God bless. This is Steve.